Is there meaning after Jesus? My name's Chris, and I was a lifelong devoted evangelical Christian until about the age of 50. A lot of life changes came along and faced some doubts, and in my early 50s, I renounced my Christian faith. And there's been a lot of reaction to that from friends, and that's understandable. It's a huge change for me. And when I posted my last video on the effect that my second marriage had at age 50, how that affected my my deconstruction process was kind of a catalyst for it. But one of my friends from seminary responded to my post with the question. I was wondering, what is the purpose of life for you? I think it's a great question, especially coming from an evangelical Christian friend. And it's a great question for people like me who are deconstructing their faith. I think that one of the things that organized religion, and particularly in my experience with evangelical Christianity, one of the things that it offers is a strong sense of meaning and purpose. So, what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about why people find so much meaning in evangelical Christianity. I was one of them. And it was difficult leaving that grandiose sense of meaning that I found in evangelical Christianity. And then I want to talk about how I do find meaning and purpose in my life now. And let me talk to you about what that is. But here's why I believe evangelical Christianity was so meaningful to me and for so many others. Evangelical Christianity has really become, it's been going for 2,000 plus years now. It's become this very tightly packaged, well thought out, really purpose package that evangelical can really present you with a very strong system to plug into with all the supports and reinforcements and opportunities to really support that feeling of purpose. So it starts with evangelical Christianity offers a compelling meta-narrative. Depending on how fundamentalist you are and literal you are, many evangelicals, fundamentalists believe the world is only 4, 5, 6,000 years old. The world was literally spoken into existence. I think that view is opening up some with people accepting a more symbolic origin of the universe. Increasingly, more evangelicals, think of the universe as being 14 billion years old, a Big Bang, all of that. Some are even opening up to the idea of evolution. But regardless, the meta-narrative that's offered is that God created the world. The world was perfect. Adam and Eve. Sin came into the world. There was a fall of man. And then there's a story of man trying to live in this fallen world, and it's mankind's or humans struggle to be obedient to God. So you see, man kind of get, according to the Bible, increasingly become evil. There's this horrific flood where God kills everybody. Most of pretty much all the animals, except for a handful of humans, handful of animals on a giant boat. They exit the boat. They immediately start having troubles. Abraham forms the nation of Israel. So the idea is to create a called out people from this messed up world that are devoted to God in this theocracy led by priests. But boy, if you read through the Bible, according to the story, there's lots of ups and downs. There's genocide. There's exiles to Babylon. There's they get conquered by Rome. It's a very up and down journey. Although I do find it interesting that Israel maintains an identity throughout the centuries, and they continue to do so today. So as an evangelical especially, I always found that, how is it, that Israel continues to be a distinct culture and presently a nation through all the horrific experiences. So that is interesting. But so you go through that, and then the next one is, many would say there was a promise of a coming Messiah in the Old Testament, although that it's not like a super clear promise. But Jesus arrives, according to the story, as the Messiah. They've been sacrificing all these animals for years and years and years. And, I think I'm going to unplug this here. All right. They've been doing that for years and years. And then Jesus fulfills that, dies for the sins of everyone permanently and forever, and offers a ransom deal, a transaction. If you believe me, all your sins are forgiven. You're guaranteed heaven for eternity, paradise. Then the Holy Spirit comes in the book of Acts, fills the believer. The age of the church begins. It's no longer a theocracy. It's a church that transcends nationalities and borders, and it really explodes. Paul kind of comes in, infuses it with some Greek philosophy, a little Plato, a little Aristotle, and then it really takes off. And gosh, a couple thousand years later, in Southern Baptist Church, I joined the movement, became a believer as a teenager. Well, actually, really as a child. I was raised Southern Baptist, and I was always, a part of things and committed. And then there's a promise of Revelation where there's going to be this final judgment, new heaven, new earth, Christ will reign. And it's a compelling narrative, and it's a good one. There's a reason millions and millions and millions of people have embraced it. It's historical. It encompasses the history of humans, including the kind of end of it and how it ends up, assurances for death and a life after death, and a very compelling narrative, but offers a lot of meaning if you embrace that and decide to become part of it. It gives you a book. I was going to bring my Bible here and hold it up, but you get a Bible, writing from probably at least, could go back as far as 1800, 2000 years in the book of Job, and some of those writings, New Testament writings that go back, over 2,000 years. And some great truths that have stood the test of time, a lot of wisdom, a lot of inspiration. I think a lot that's true, but then some big problems too, as I came to discover it later on in life. Then there's a huge selection of local churches. Oh my goodness, just within a 5-mile circumference, or whatever the word is, radius of where I'm sitting right now, you could choose from a bunch of different types of churches: evangelical, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist, non-denominational, Catholic, Jehovah's Witness, Mormons, certainly Baptist, you name it. Within less than 15 minutes, I have almost every denomination available to me. I have this massive buffet of local churches to choose from, which is really amazing. And I pick one that kind of suits my preferences and my beliefs and practices and all that kind of stuff. And there I can plug in there. I find supportive friendships, lots of social activities to connect with. And then you become a part of the mission of the local church to serve and reach the community. And that can be extremely supportive and meaningful. Then there's a rich evangelical subculture. You can go to Christian school, Catholic school, Lutheran school, Baptist. You can pick schools, colleges that line up with your particular flavor of Christianity. There's music. That was a big part of my life. There's movies and films and radio and podcast, and books were a big part of my life when I was younger. Christian bookstores. I always wanted to find a good Christian bookstore. There are conferences. I mean, right now, Christianity just has a rich and thorough offering of subculture supporting entertainment and tools and self-help and self-development options and tools available for you. Then you get promises of the afterlife, that if you correctly execute the spiritual transactions, different Christians believe a different way. If you believe the certain thing sincerely, some say if you do the right rituals like baptism, communion, whatever. But there's a combination of belief and ritual that, if done correctly, will guarantee you eternity in paradise. Well, that's a pretty good deal. Life is short. If I can have a guarantee for eternity, that's pretty attractive. And then what I loved was just the grandiose mission to save the world. It's like, oh my gosh, I am literally trying to save the world from hell, where people literally or figuratively are tormented and burned and tortured for eternity. And boy, that's worse than cancer. That's worse than AIDS. That's worse than Alzheimer's. I am on a mission to save people from eternal torment and punishment. Of course, I came to believe that doesn't really seem reasonable to me, to torment people for eternity based on a life of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, But anyway, that's what, and that kind of black and white thinking, I don't have that listed, but, you really have a reduced, simplistic, black and white picture of reality that just makes it really a lot easier to kind of deal with reality and kind of makes things clearer. But in the process, that, unfortunately, life isn't black and white. And a lot of things don't fit in those black and white categories. So you can look at some of my other videos to see why I ultimately rejected that. And I think there's a ton of problems with that whole system. But yet I understand how I found meaning in that. I understand the attractiveness of that. And I understand why people choose to be apart from it. And it was difficult leaving it. Because the thing is, once you no longer believe this stuff, even though a lot of my Christian friends are just terrific people, I enjoy them, but it's almost like kind of falling out of love when you don't share this view of the world and these beliefs and these motivations and these activities. You just you either drift apart because you just don't connect in the same way anymore, or unfortunately, there's unpleasant confrontations. I've had family members say, I'm dragging myself and my family to hell, and other kind of blunt things like that. Some people just kind of quietly detach from you, and I've quietly detached from a lot of people. So I'm not really judging my Christian friends who have kind of drifted away, because I've also drifted away and I've rejected a lot of things, and I even condemn, a lot of my former evangelical beliefs, the sexism, the homophobia, the racism. Um, I could go on some toxic beliefs about hell, and so I could go on and on. Other videos covered that, but I have made a hard turn and a clear turn, and I'm not going back. And some of the things I believed previously were evil. I mean, that's just it. And some of the things evangelical Christianity is promoting is, it's just evil. And then we won't even get into Donald Trump. Okay, that's a video in itself. So, back to the question, is there meaning after Jesus? Is there meaning after the evangelical Christian subculture? Well, let me start off with this. True experiences, false beliefs. Just because I left Christianity doesn't mean I'm an atheist. Some people become atheists, but I didn't become an atheist. So I have a little slogan, true experiences, false beliefs. As I look back on my Christian experience, it was very powerful for me in very positive ways for me. I had direct experiences with God, with Spirit, that were very powerful and positive for me, maybe life-saving. So I don't just throw out the baby with the bathwater. You can have true experiences while having false beliefs. God's light will shine through the cracks. And even though there's all kinds of wrong beliefs blocking a true understanding experience of God, God will shine through the cracks as much as you will allow, as much as there is space. And so I had powerful direct experiences with God despite many horrifically wrong beliefs. And I should also add, there are many true beliefs and helpful beliefs in evangelical Christianity in the Bible. I still see Jesus as a light, an imperfect light, a human light, but at times a profound, insightful, revolutionary light that helps my understanding of God and helps me on my spiritual journey. So, I haven't left everything. I've left the stuff that I understand now to be false, and I'll continue to do that the rest of my life. I will never come to a perfect understanding of truth and God, and I'll keep sorting it out as I go along. But leaving Christianity was a fork in the road, I should say, for me. So right now, I experience God as a spirit within me, within every human, and filling the universe. I believe we all have that inner light, that inner God, inner guide. I tend to use the word spirit because the word God has so much baggage for me and for others. Spirit, I'm finding, is a better word. Inner guide, inner light, inner wisdom. Those are all helpful to me. And I believe atheists are accessing God. They may call it intuition, conscience, a gut feeling. But I believe those are all experiences to some degree of spirit of God. I believe God is a good spirit full of love and wisdom, moving people, me, towards goodness, towards a right expression of who I'm intended to be, and also working that way in the world, but in a non-coercive way. And you can choose otherwise. I believe there's a life after this one. That would really be a whole topic in itself, but it's really an intuitive belief with some reasons to support it. But I couldn't run a science experiment and prove it. I have I've maintained, I would say, a lot of the essential spiritual beliefs from Christianity without the dogma. You know, when you embrace Christianity, you're embracing this thick layer of dogma. I actually went to seminary. I have a seminary degree where you spend 3 years studying the dogma. And although I learned things, the dogma is more of the problem than the answer. And so what I've done is I've jettisoned the dogma. I don't embrace the dogma of Islam or Hinduism, or Buddhism doesn't really have dogma, but I don't swallow anything whole anymore. I'm not looking for a system to give myself over to. They're all useful. Often they're stories of a group of people or individuals, their journey to know and experience God. And I benefit from that, but I take what's useful and what rings true, and I can let go of the rest. I don't have to take it whole. I don't have to believe everything Jesus said. I don't have to believe everything Paul said. I can take what's useful and enlightened and let go of the rest. So that's a wonderful freedom now, is I've learned so much from reading from Buddhism, from Taoism. I read more philosophy now, the existentialists, Stoicism, a lot of good stuff. Read more Christian philosophy like Alvin Plantinga, some really brilliant stuff there. So I'm getting a lot more input from broader areas, and I think that's giving me a fuller version of the truth. So what is my meaning? I discover my meaning. I listen to that inner guide, that intuition, and my belief, hypothesis, is we intuitively know what's meaningful. And I tend to find meaning in the same things religious people of all varieties find meaning in. I find meaning in my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my children, with relationship with my neighbors and my community, my friends. I find a lot of meaning there. And so I really pour my life into that, especially my wife and children. And probably especially my children, I should say, because they're that next generation. I find meaning in my work. For me, it was important to find. I'm a special education teacher, and I find a lot of meaning in directly working with kids who need help. I work in a low-income community. I find some meaning in helping kids who have some challenges that are unique to people who grow up in low-income communities. And so I find meaning in that. You can find meaning in a lot of different ways, but that's how I find it, really in a way of directly helping people. But then I find meaning in nature, and like I'm fortunate, I live in a yard that has kind of woods behind it, and I have access to kind of working it out in the woods and clearing things and trying to make them beautiful and healthy. And I love being outside and working in nature. My family we just love being outside and hiking or swimming or just walking around, or there's just something about it. So in beauty, in learning, I could really go on and on. But I guess to make it a principle, I find meaning in trying to bring good into myself and make myself increasingly a means of good, of becoming the best person I can be to do the most good for the world around me. And the people who know me will quickly point out I've got a long way to go. That's one reason I believe in eternity, because I'm about to turn 60 and I feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like I was created for more time than is going to be available for me in this life. I still feel like a beginner at existing and living. And so I that tells me there's something more to come. This isn't it. I'm living for something more than this. Again, gosh, all these things I could talk for 45 minutes on. So I live for increasingly good, becoming good, and good being expressed through me. I am motivated to bring good into the world as best I can in the areas of influence and control that I have, which are pretty limited, but it makes a difference. The whole butterfly effect thing. And I do believe that I'm part of a larger work that Spirit is doing in the world and in the universe and in people. And I do believe there's a life to come after this one. I don't believe it's this transactional where I get baptized or devote myself to a creed or dogma in order to get in. I think it's progressive. I think it's progressive. We're all in different places. We're all we're born into different things. You can't just separate everyone to sheep and the goat, the lost and the saved, the damned and the redeemed. It's just not that simple. Life is super complicated, and I'm privileged, man. I've had so many opportunities. Most of the world doesn't get what I've gotten. It's not fair. And so I think we're all in our own journey, and what's to come will be the next step in the process. And I can talk more about that in the future. So I find tremendous meaning, but right now I don't fit into a nice, tight system where, there's a bookstore that supports my belief and talented artists who sing songs about my belief and 20 different organizations in my community to choose which one I want to be a part of. I wish it was that way, but that's just not reality. So I'm still trying to find a community. I'll be sharing about that, different ways I'm trying to do that. So I do miss that, and there are things I miss, but there's ultimately a lot more peace and freedom and hope in following the light where it leads. All right. Thank you. See you next time.